The Road to War. Written and narrated by John Miro. Get more at servingworlds.com. 40. In Fold, aboard Alliance Intercept Fleet flagship Return. Airlock doors slid sideways, and Fleet Admiral Ashlan Daku stormed into the Fleet Council room. The entire deck around this room had been transplanted from the original gravity-generating wheel that had sat atop Return back when her name was Lucky Strike, and buried here in the guts of the reconfigured flagship. Once an opulent sitting room designed to please the powerful, the surfaces of this room had long since been stripped of their trappings. No bookcases, no paintings, no sofas, chairs, or rugs remained. Glow squares and wall tracks provided clean, even light. The woman striding purposefully into the room was much changed as well. Gone were the grandmotherly silks and robes. Once again, the Admiral wore a uniform. But now the word Alliance was fixed proudly in place of any one nation or world's flag. Now 10 crash couches surrounded the circular table, newly christened as the Fleet Command Council. Although the implants worn by everyone in the fleet greatly reduced the utility of the table, it remained a powerful symbol of unity and equality between the colonies and Earth in the face of their species' greatest threat. A threat the fleet was racing now to face head-on. Everyone was on their feet, screaming across the table, hurling their rage and their fear. 7 uniforms and 3 suits turned their questions to her as Ashlan Daku approached the table. The Admiral was the only representative from Ostrov, a colony famed for its neutrality in disputes between Earth and the colonies. Her reputation as the leader of convoys past, her military service, and the fact she hadn't bombed Reach upon arrival at the height of a civil war, all worked to see her installed as Fleet Admiral once again. The former Earth-installed Governor of Reach, Joseph Card, sat as her Vice Admiral, and his fellow Earther Jacob Kagan served as Commodore and third in command. The final Earther was Chief of Staff Benjamin Atta. The Reach contingent included former IRC President and former Rebel leader Jacques Kapoor as Marine Commandant, former Mayor of North Reach and now Head of Logistics and Manpower, Emma Bindi, and Surgeon General, Dr. Ellis Bay. 3 colonists from Drayton rounded out the council and provided the civilian contingent. Maxim Costa, in charge of communications and infrastructure, Finn Envers in charge of research and development, and Idris Andawi, serving as Fleet Inspector General. All were on their feet now, and the air was charged with their terror, despair, and hot-blooded rage. "Vengeance deliberately rammed the Harrison, Colonel." Chief of Staff Benjamin Atta spat the last word. "We didn't answer that aggression. And now Cloak has launched a full-scale mutiny." Atta rose his voice to a roar to keep talking over the crowd. "Breaker, Revolver, and Namante have all followed Cloak's leads with attacks of their own. Reacher ships across the fleet are jamming communications. This is a coordinated attack." "We lost all hands on Vengeance," Colonel Kapoor roared right back. "Do you think 2,300 troops and crews signed a suicide pact?" The tall, olive-skinned man's graying ponytail whipped over the shoulders of his Alliance Marine uniform as he poked his fingers at every member of the council. "Of course they're defending themselves. Half the Reachers in the fleet have been wiped out. What would you do if us dirty sand fleas killed thousands of Earthers?" In answer, Vice Admiral Card threw up his hands and walked away from the table. Not helpful. Ashlan had never wanted Reach's former Earth-installed governor as her fleet number 2, but uniting Earth and Reach against an unknown alien threat demanded compromise and politics. "Those attacks looked a lot like suppression fire and airspace control to me," Commodore Kagan said, showing some of the hidden strength and fairness that made the Earther third from the top in the fleet. "Yes, Cloak took out Whippin' Leonov's turrets before she went, but her crew was scared shitless. And now they're dead. We can't punish them any harder. We can't rip this fleet apart. Even over this, too much depends on us. His passionate speech earned mere moments of consideration before the screams returned. When Ashlan's fleet appeared above a reach in turmoil, it took mere weeks for the alliance to be chartered and recognized as the governing body of the human race. In the subsequent 10 months, Ashlan had worked tirelessly to create a modicum of trust between Earth and Reach. Her nurturing kindness and tolerance was half the reason Fleet Command Council could govern what had entered the fold as a military force of 20,000 very different beings. The other half, of course, being the revelation of an alien life form that had shattered Earth's nations in a handful of hours and was on its way now to Reach to do the same. A death blow, extinction for the human race. Ashlan had committed every moment of her life to honing the Alliance intercept fleet. She gave endlessly of her time to settle disputes. She cajoled, teased, and wheedled the most ardent Earther and Reacher enemies to share meals with her, and slowly, so slowly, her trust and openness bore fruit and spread among the ranks. In the months leading up to the Fold event, Ashlan's leadership built fresh hope in the people of the fleet. As the intercept plan fell into place, she soothed hatreds and cooled distrusts, treating them as the scar tissue she professed them to be. Acts of cruelty and malevolence she decried as a wound to the human spirit, and she cared for people suffering from them as such. It worked. The fleet began to knit together into something greater than itself. The actual fighters, however, remained literally worlds apart. Officially, Jacques Kapoor was Marine Commandant, leading a brigade of 6 battalions. In actuality, Jacob Kagan guided the 1st through 4th Battalions, Earth-only troops who refused to respect former resistance leader Jacques Kapoor as their leader, no matter what Ashlan and the Council decreed. Similarly, the Reacher-only 5th and 6th Battalions were loyal to Kapoor alone. Ashlan had worked miracles integrating the non-military component of the fleet, but she couldn't risk merging those battalions. She could heal the rift between civilians because their arguments, no matter how heated or deeply felt, had seldom led to bloodshed and death between them. Not so with veterans of that hard-fought civil war. It had been bloody madness. She remembered her own despair, emerging from the last Fold 11 months ago, to find Reach in almost as bad shape as what had happened back on Earth. No. The best she could do was give Kagan and Kapoor all the support she could. They respected each other, at least, and both soldiers respected the value of human life too much to throw it away. And there was no time to do more. They would meet the enemy soon. Too soon. Between Chief of Staff Atta's military police and Inspector General Andawi's special investigators, the peace held among civilians, and new bonds slowly formed. Miracle of miracles. Ashlan had negotiated truces, even friendships between the fiercest of enemies. Time was not their friend in Fold. And Ashlan knew that only Kagan and Kapoor could bring those soldiers together before the intercept. It was nothing that could be forced upon them by her. She gave them that time and that trust. In the meantime, she pursued and strengthened the unity and peace that was the mortar of the new alliance of humanity, with bottomless kindness, love, and faith in her fellow human beings. Ignoring the storm of voices, Ashlan lifted her right arm high above the table. She triggered the cylinder in her hand and swung it down, giving voice to a wordless fury. Electricity crackled around her hand. Faster than any eye could see, a 2-meter-long crystal blade unfurled. Oblivious voices still blamed and demanded and tore at the trust Ashlan had slaved to build around this table, for the good of the fleet, for the survival of the entire human race. The screams changed when Ashlan's blade shattered the tabletop. Glass sprayed into the air. The screens within the table flared white and died. The council hid their faces and backed away from the explosions, then turned as one, to come face to face with the murderous rage of their admiral. 3 ships gone. Ashlan's deep, smoky voice choked with pain on that final word. The council remained silent, standing perfectly still. Ashlan left her blade embedded in the smoking table and circled it, challenging every face she passed. The churn? And now this? 8,000. Dead! She let the tears come. They didn't solve the venom in her broken voice or the rage on her face. Stunned silence finally reigned around that table. Shipboard networks were limping along, while intership transmissions were completely offline thanks to the Reacher ship scramblers. Lasers and radio still worked, though. Return's executive officer had personally chased Ashlan down only minutes ago to share the message she now beamed into each counselor member's head. The static-filled recording flickered to life in all their interfaces. I'm sending on all open channels. Our network access has been destroyed. Shut down. Please, record and share this recording. This is Communications Officer Pryor aboard Peter Cloak. We are under attack. This was not the churn. I say again, not the churn. Mines were floated into our drives. I'm sending sensor logs to corroborate. Someone killed us, Reachers. He swallowed hard. Watch your six. Don't let them take you without a fight. The video lasted only 18 seconds. Ashlan triggered a replay inside everyone's head. When it played out the second time, they stared at each other with dumb, disbelieving eyes. Verified by Maxim's best tech, Ashlan whispered in the newfound silence. Councilman Maxim Costa, head of Information Division, darted his eyes to Vice Admiral Cards, then immediately, guiltily, away. There it was, the telltale. Ashlan started around the table toward the Vice Admiral's spot. Cloak was targeted, intentionally destroyed. Her eyes burned into Jacob Card. Who did this? She hissed. I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out who before this fleet tears itself apart. You're too late, Card told her. Look around. It already has. You have been listening to Reach, The Road to War. Written and narrated by John Miro. Music, All This by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Hear more of the story at servingworlds.com. Thank you for listening.